to create the gooseneck that connects the holder with the clamp. Okay, so it's really now important that we created everything initially around the right work plane, and that we continue to do that so it lines up quite well. So let's view it from the right, click on the right work plane and start a new sketch. We're going to create the ball at first that fits in here, and then the wire that comes down into the clamp. So let's draw a circle at first in this space here, and to make this a little bit easier we can change the view from shaded to shaded with hidden edges so that you can see the circle that sits behind there. Okay, let's dimension this so it fits. Our diameter was 17.5 and the distance from this bottom part here was 20. It's really important that you get these to line up really well. And then the final part that we needed was the distance from there, and that was 10. Okay, we know that lines up, we just need to cut it in half so that we can revolve it about an axis. So we just use our line tool to draw from the centre to the edges. Use the trim to cut this part, not this. We're going to use a trim part to cut here, and then we can confirm that sketch. We can revolve that around then using the revolve tool, select the face and select the axes, which is that straight line that we just drew. You can see it's creating the ball for our joint there as well. Okay, and it's a new colour so we know it's a new part. We're now going to try and connect that down to the clamp. So we just carry on viewing it from the right work plane, new sketch. We're going to use a tool called a sweep, and to do that you need a path and then the cross section that you want to sweep down the path. So we're just going to use a line tool to start with. I prefer doing this to the spleen, but you could use a spleen I guess as well. So we're going to go roughly halfway from the ball, coming out here, and we're just going to wave this down quite randomly to start with before we throw some dimensions at it as well into the base there. Okay, we'll add some rounds to this in a second, don't worry, it's not going to be a square cable. So let's start dimensioning. So the first thing is we want this to line up with that line there, so let's make that 0, and we want it to be coming out of the centre, so we want that distance there to be 20. Okay, we can then start dimensioning these lines, so we're working with rounder numbers. So I'd make everything roughly 10, so nothing that's too difficult to work with in the end. Okay, so we'll just work our way through all of the lines until we said 65 there should get us to the centre, which is nice, and then 50 should get us to the top of that line. In fact, if we delete that dimension, it'll be a better idea to dimension the distance from that point to that line and make that 0 so it fits perfectly. We can then go ahead and use our sketch fillet and start to put lots of rounds in here that will start to look nicer. So that 20 we could change to 50, look quite considerable, and we'll do an even one on there as well. So we've got 50 there, and then this one will have to be different, so that's going to have to be 40. Let's change the others to 40 there, so we don't want that. We'll go Control and Z and Control and Z again to take that off. We'll then start a new sketch fillet so we can dimension it differently. The reason we can't have this one 50 is because it's over halfway, and then it'd make the other uneven, so 40 will look nicer there, and then this one can be exactly 40 as well. Okay, we're then going to start a new sketch fillet again, because this one's going to be 35 this time, as is this one here, and then the last one on here is it's telling us there's a problem straight away. So if we escape that fillet, start a new sketch fillet, and that one's going to have to be quite a bit smaller. Okay. So we make that 20, in fact that could be 25 and it'll still look okay. There we go. So now we've got more of a wavy line connecting, we can finish that sketch. My dimensions there were just me choosing random dimensions. You can choose any random shape that you want. You could do it in a much straighter line, if you like. Just have it coming out perpendicular and in perpendicular for it to look best. Okay. We're then going to have to create a second sketch. The second sketch will go on the bottom here, 6mm, to sweep out of this shape here. So we're going to sketch on this work face, and then we're going to look down at that from above. Zooming in, we can draw a circle from the centre there and dimension that the same as we made the hole, which was not the distance. I didn't mean to click that, so start that bit again, dimension the diameter at 6mm. That's done. So we've got our two parts that make a sweep. We've got the shape that goes along the line and the line that you want the shape to go along. Okay, so now the sweep tool is this one here. It's faces that you want to sweep. So that was the second sketch that you did, and the path that you want to sweep it along was the first sketch that we did. And you can see it'll just throw that circle along the line, and we're happy with that. The only thing is we want to add it to our part 7. Okay, and then click tick. And once you've added that to part 7, you can see we've got that wire coming out that connects the two parts together, and it does look a little bit skinny. So to combat that, we're going to go back in and edit this. We'll edit our sketch, and this is a good bit of learning actually about going back and editing old things to develop ideas really. So going back into this part here, we've done it as an extrude on here, this sketch 20. So we're going to edit sketch 20. We're going to zoom in. We're going to make the outside 20mm, because that still shouldn't hit the edge. It's hitting that edge there a little bit, so we're going to reduce that maybe 18mm, leaving that bit of a gap. And then this 6mm can become 12mm, and it's going to be much chunkier. In fact, it might be a bit too chunky, so we'll take it back down to 10 and click tick. You can see now that we need to edit the circle that we did the sweep on. So sketch 23 was that circle. We're going to edit it, and that just needs to become 10mm. When we click tick and update, it'll then sweep that along the path, and that wire looks more robust, looks much better. So the final thing now to do is edit the appearance. So we'll change it back to shaded, and then we can have a look on here and see what colours we want. So I actually want these two parts to be the same colour, and the clamp as well. The plastic part of the clamp I'm going to have the same colour as those. So I've highlighted all three by holding Control on my keyboard, right click, and now I'm going to edit the appearance for the three parts, and I'm going to make them a red colour. That's going to be my brand. In fact, I like that orangey colour better. So I'm going to click that one and click tick. The next parts around the back here, we've got this attachment. I'm going to make that a very different colour. I'm going to make it stand out a little bit. So I'm going to edit the appearance for that. Because it's actually something that a user has to interact with, I'm going to make it bright pink so it stands out and they know they can use that there. Then the part here, the gooseneck, I'm going to change the colour of that as well. I'm going to edit its appearance, and that's going to be quite a pale grey to fit the theme. And the last parts in here are these, which are metal parts, so I'm going to change them to be metal parts. So holding Control and select both, right click, edit appearance for two parts, and they're going to be quite a dark grey colour. Click tick, and now when you want to look at what you've created, it looks far better because you've selected these colours. What we can do as well to make it look better for a screenshot to add to a portfolio, we can actually hide all of these planes and the origin point, so you're only seeing the parts that you've created. You just have to make sure as well that you hide the new planes that were created further down, so that you're only seeing what you want to see. And there we go. We've got our tablet holder. We will look at animations in the next, or assemblies, sorry, not animations. We'll look at assemblies in the next tutorial so that we can see how all this interacts and moves together.